What drives you daily to be creative?
When I'm in my studio working, I can just lose myself for hours. I wanted something that combined my two passions, which were history and ceramics. But eventually I found this way into landscape through ceramics and print process. And that became the core of my PhD practice.
The idea of women lifting other women and together we rise is so powerful.
Just encourage and just say it. If you think it, say it. You know, if you think someone looks great, say it. Don't just think it.
Hello and welcome to another In Conversation. I'm Fleur from Fleur of England, and today I have got the amazing Dr Sally Wetherall with me to talk about International Women's Day and also to talk to us about Sally's journey as a creative. I've had the absolute pleasure of knowing Sally for 15 years, and Sally is one of my dearest friends, and she inspires me so much with her creativity. So welcome, Sally.
Thank you.
You are in for a pure treat today to find out more about Sally and her journey. Sally has just completed a PhD, I think last month.
Yep.
Last month.
5th of February.
5th of February.
Yep.
So huge congratulations. And we'd just absolutely love it if you could talk to us a bit today about your journey of creativity and what drives you daily to be creative.
I think I've always been drawn to want to make. So materials, I think some of my earliest memories are of finding clay or finding, we had a willow tree in my garden. I'd weave willow baskets when I was sort of 6 or 7. I think just understanding what materials do, I just gives me so much pleasure. I think that I've heard that the flow state is the most sort of positive mindset when you just completely lose yourself in work. And I think that's what I find when I'm in my studio working. I can just lose myself for hours. I sort of emerge sometimes and realize that it's time to go and pick the kids up from school, and sort of 6 hours have gone by. So I think it just brings me so much joy to understand what materials will, and to understand the meaning behind materials. I think that's particularly with my PhD, that's given an extra dimension to it, because it's not purely making an object to go in a gallery. It's also trying to understand what conceptually those pieces of work might mean, and what other people might take from those pieces of work. So yeah, that's been really interesting.
Oh, wonderful. I mean, it's a shared value. We talk a lot about creativity, and it's one of those words that I think sometimes it's just thrown around. But if it's like a pure value in you, you have it every day. Like it's part of your soul in a way to be creative. Sally, we'd absolutely love to know a bit more about your PhD and why you were so driven to take a PhD, because it's a huge amount of time. It's a massive learning, which I'm just in awe of. So please share with us your PhD story.
So I originally did a history degree. I did a foundation, and then I did a history degree. And I love history, but I always regretted taking myself away from that creative world. So as soon as I finished my degree, I went back. I was an art teacher, and then I did a master's in ceramics. And at that point, I was making figurative work. So, and that sustained me for many years. About 15 years, I was known for figurative work. But I felt, as I was just saying, that the figures were almost just an object that I sold them sold quite well, and that was lovely, and I enjoyed making them. But I wanted something that combined my two passions, which were history and ceramics. And so it took me a while, but eventually I found this way into landscape through ceramics and print process. And that became the core of my PhD practice. So understanding through historical knowledge how landscape is formed and the stories that landscape can hold, and then using processes, material processes, artistic processes to sort of illuminate those stories and make them for other people to see, for other people to understand, but also sort of catching hold of memories before they were lost. Because the change is happening so fast, particularly in the countryside. You know, a field could could go in a day that has taken thousands of years for that track to be sort of marked into the earth. And I think it was that sense of sort of capturing memories, capturing history, and understanding the sort of obscured stories that landscape holds.
Mm. Just it's so wonderful being able to all those different elements of your life pulling together,
Yeah.
because I know where you live is very inspiring to you.
Yeah, so I live in the Mendip, so about 6 miles north of Wells. It's a really ancient landscape. It's been settled for about, well, since Neolithic times, so thousands of years. And there are trackways that have been there for 2,000 years. There's remnants of Roman trackways. There's a mastile that's carved into the church, which
Wow.
is how the village would have told the time until clocks were invented. So it's that sort of, it's got these ancient sort of rhythms of life still within the landscape, and I find that fascinating. And I think the way that the light changes how the landscape is perceived, and I think that I've tied in that very much in my practice to light being this source of sort of obviously a source of illumination, but how it can change what we see as memory changes through time. So in the winter, when the light is very low, you can see that the fields have got ridge and furrows still in them, and there are strip lynchets that we've walked past many times. So the fields are ridged because of ploughing that stopped in the 14th century. And it's a strange thing. So when I drive to school, my kids to school one way, in the early morning light coming down, the ridges look massive, this stepped hillside. But if you're driving to pick them up in the afternoon light, the soil looks flat because the light's coming from the other direction. So it's this sense of landscape being very changeable
Mm.
and different stories appearing and reappearing at different times as memories sort of reappear and disappear through time.
Oh, it's
So
just
yeah.
wonderful. It's beautiful. I mean, I was lucky enough to go to your exhibition and see your final show, which was absolutely breathtaking. So huge congratulations. It's such a huge achievement. So yes, congratulations, Sally. That's wonderful. I do believe that there was one particular picture that really captured a moment in time. And I'd love it. I think you have it with you
Yeah.
today. I'd love it if you could talk us through it and
Yeah.
explain a bit about the process.
Yeah, so I have it
It
here.
helps.
So this is a photograph taken from above, and it's taken on, it's sort of quite difficult to read, which I really like about it. So this is the hedgerow at the bottom, and then this is a puddle that the hedgerow is reflected in, so you can see reflections, but also there are leaves suspended in the water of the puddle. Um, and this is taken on a track, which is one of the tracks I talked about,
Mm.
which is probably, it's at least 2,000 years old. And along the borders of this track are oak trees, which I learned were probably planted 400 years ago, when we needed oak for the Napoleonic Wars, partly. So there's a story behind every aspect of landscape if you look for it. And I think that's what I'm so fascinated by, that you can look at a landscape and see trees and grass, but then if you research, each little bit and the reason why it's there tells a story of why it
Mm.
was placed and the people that lived there and why certain things are the way they are. And I find that fascinating.
It's really powerful as well.
Yeah, I think it's these traces. And I think particularly they're often traces of people who are not going to be recorded in official archives. They're people that lived and dwelt and walked the tracks, but wouldn't have done anything that would have been recorded in a history book. And as I think I've talked to you about before, one of the particular moments that was really profound for me was finding my great grandparents' marriage certificate, where they'd marked it with a cross rather than with their names because
Mm.
they couldn't read or write, as many people couldn't until, I think Education Act was 1870. So
Not really that
not
long
no,
ago.
really not very long, only a few generations, 5 generations in my family's case, before we go into the realms of people not being able to read or write. So it's very, very close. And before that, there've been nu innumerable stories of people that would have no record because even those marriage certificates are relatively recent, a couple of 100 years.
Yes.
So this is why landscape is so fascinating, because the traces that are left in landscape are of the people that lived there.
Yes.
So this idea of this image holding multiple time frames became really interesting to me, that there was the light, there was the water, there was the trees, there was the plants that had grown one summer, the leaves of one summer, but then the sunlight, which could be billions of years or seconds old, my presence there, which has a temporality which is different from the trees, which is hundreds of years,
Yes.
all built into one moment. And when I went back a few weeks later I loved this photograph so much that I wanted to try and recreate it. It was gone. The track had flooded, so it was gone forever.
Yeah.
So in the way that happens in memories, in landscape, they will eventually disappear. And I think this leads me on to understanding the conceptual, what artistic process can bring to our understanding. So this image is a photo etching. So in the normal process, each time you want to print from the plate, you would re-ink, you'd print, and then you would re-ink and print again. And because I wanted to capture the sense of memory in landscape and memory disappearing, I wondered what would happen if, instead of re-inking, I just continued to print. And so this one is a series of 14 etchings that I put into this book form. And with each plate, you can see the print is becoming gradually less clear, fading gradually, until I think the last one, you can only really see it if you hold it into the light, because it's sort of grooved into the paper rather than inked into the paper. And this felt really conceptually similar to me, or tied into the sense of landscape and the way that the light changes how we perceive. The memories are still there, but often we can't see them until the light changes, or until we do some research and then understand, like the mass style. I just thought it was some marks on the church wall until I researched and then understood that it was this object that had a profound sort of influence over people in the village. Or, it would be telling people when to go to church and when to get up. And so these little marks are actually enormously powerful. And we don't see it as that. We just see it as sort of little grooves.
Yeah.
And there's so many times like that in landscape, I think, that these things that will go past by would have had a huge, a really profound story behind them that will disappear unless people's artistic practice, and I think it is artistic practice particularly, that can bring those stories to a wider audience. And part of my practice as well is making the places precious that are quite ordinary. So instead of just seeing a field or a track with a muddy puddle, you see these stories. And I think once you see those stories and understand the profound history that's gone on in these places, then I think people are more prepared to treat them as precious. And I think that for the future is for me, that's a really important part of my practice, is to give a sort of level of protection to these places that I think, rather than seeing them as a commodity to be sort of built on, or, industrially farmed, or whatever. As much as we do need development, we need to be thoughtful about how we do that.
Yes. That's just so interesting. Absolutely fascinating. And your work is beautiful, and aesthetically it's gorgeous, and you can see how stunning it would be in any home. But when you hear your story and why you've taken this picture and why it's so important, it just comes alive, because you can just really understand it on so many different levels. There's so many more dimensions to it, so many more layers to your work. And that's why we're so privileged to have you here today to talk about your work and understanding your creative process. Because everybody's process is unique. But yes, thank you so much. I've learned lots more about your work from just talking to you today. So thank you so much for coming. Because we are here in particular to talk about International Women's Day, which is Give to Gain. That's the whole theme for this year, which is really, really exciting. And I love that theme in particular, because I think the idea of women lifting other women, and together we rise is so powerful. I'd love to hear your story of like a really amazing female force in your life that's helped you become the creative artist that you are today. Are there any particular women that you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, so many actually. I think I've been very lucky to have so many, well, as a young child, have really powerful female role models, and then have so many important friends like you know, just people that sustain me in following the journey I decided to take as a professional artist, which is sometimes quite challenging, and you need to keep your self-belief very strong, I think, because you're putting yourself out, as you know, you create something, you're putting it out into the world for other people to comment and make judgment on. And that can sometimes, you know, need a huge amount of strength of will. And I think that's my own self-belief comes from a few different places, but I think particularly we've talked a lot about our families. And
Yes.
my mother was a very unusual woman for her generation. She was born in 1937, so she'd be 89 now, if she was still with us. And she trained as a teacher, which was one of the few jobs, as your mum was
Yes.
teacher as well.
Yeah.
There weren't many opportunities in the 30s and 40s for clever girls. So librarian or teacher, my mum was offered. She would have been an actress if she'd been able to make any choice, but she didn't have that choice. And I think actually she used that acting ability in her teaching. She was a great force of nature. And she taught for 50 years without stopping, and then tutored after she retired. She was pretty much made to retire in her 70s, against her will, really. And she just believed in women as equal to anything, and was fierce in that women should be educated to the same level, they should have the same opportunities, and that you should follow your passion. And I think I grew up with that self-belief of just find what you're good at and then just follow it determinedly, and don't let people knock you off track, whatever it happens to be that you want to do. And then I was also lucky, even though I moved schools so many times, to have these inspirational headmistresses. So my first headmistress, no, she wasn't actually she was my third headmistress when I was 7, was a potter, and she brought clay into school, and just holding this material felt, I can still remember it, just thinking, this could do anything. I could make anything of that. It's sort of like almost like a bomb. You know, it's got so much power, sort of cold weight of clay that just can be transformed. And she must have brought, I can't remember this, but she must have brought her own work in to show us, to be able to imagine. So that was amazing. And then my next school in Windsor, we had this very eccentric headmistress. She was in her 60s or 70s. She had taught all her life, never married, called Miss Wallace. And she was also a potter. And she had this boiler suit with the really scruffy old blue boiler suit that she'd pull on for art classes, with 2 patches of clay on here, where she'd just obviously wiped her hands. And that was immaculate everywhere else. Really funny. So we would do half the year doing ceramics, which at age 7 or 8 is so unusual. I was so lucky. And we had a school ceramics prize, which I was given. And that really cemented me in just thinking, I'm good at this, and I love this, and this is who I am now. And I think to have that gift so young was really powerful. And also it gave me a sort of sense of, and I think a lot of creative people feel like this, they're not necessarily fitting in very neatly in school or in many places maybe. There's a sort of slight sort of looking at the world in a different way that can sometimes make you feel a bit uncomfortable, until maybe you go to foundation and meet your tribe and then just go, oh, thank goodness. But having that creative personality and thinking this is what I'm good at just gave me that sort of wonderful bubble of self-confidence that, yeah, it was wonderful.
How incredible for Miss Wallace to have given you that confidence at such a young age.
Yeah.
It's so powerful. It's such a powerful message. You know, how you can you can just build the most beautiful gardens with words, you know, and just choosing them carefully is really, really important and empowering. Empowering other women.
Definitely.
So I guess that's a real gift to gain. She gave you the prize, and you gained your career. Your career in creativity. That's such a lovely story. It's really, really wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. On the subject of gift to gain, it's not really an accident that Sally's here with us today, because Sally and her family were incredibly generous in the summer of this year and let us shoot our whole spring-summer 26 campaign in their wonderful house. So we have a collection here behind us. But as I was designing this collection, I was like, oh, do you know, it would just be so lovely if I could shoot this in Sally's house, because I mean, you can see in the pictures, the house is absolutely beautiful, and Sally's, it's stunning. I mean, Sally has to kick me out sometimes because I like to sit and have a cup of tea in her kitchen.
Talk for hours.
Yes, absolutely. But also Sally's got the most wonderful studio, which we shot some of our campaigns. So we were super, super lucky that Sally and her family gifted us their house for the day and let us shoot there. So I'm so grateful, because I know our customers really, really love the pictures. We also had a great day. It's stunning. So yes, thank you so much. And we've gained so much from that.
Having you.
I'm interested to know how it felt having like our team, who our photographic team, who I've worked with for 12 years. How did it feel having us in your home, in your personal space, and taking photographs? And what did you think of the pictures at the end?
Oh, I love the pictures. They're beautiful. But I think I had no idea what to expect. And actually it was really exciting, the buzziness of it, and having a whole team arrive and each person doing a different thing and looking at the house in a different way. But I think what I was surprised, I think we're always critical. Maybe, I don't know, maybe everyone is self-critical. Maybe artistic people are particularly self-critical, and then looking and thinking, that's not quite right, or I haven't, you know. And I think I'd maybe got into a sort of, I think I've lived in my house now for 10 years, and it's been an ongoing renovation project. So I can always see what needs doing next and what isn't quite finished and what I would rather, you know, change about that. And I think having your team come in and just sort of looking around and saying, oh, look at that, look at the way the lights, it sort of reawakened me a bit to my own space. And it was really lovely. Just and again, looking at those photographs and almost going, that's my home. That's really lovely. And I think, I mean, a lot of that was lighting and the camera work and everything, but it was just lovely. And particularly the pictures I really loved the most were the ones in the roses. And it was all lousy and it's a bit scruffy and wildflowers and just, you know, very cottage sort of English sort of summer look, and the light was lovely, and it was a nice reminder to me that everything doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be neat. That sometimes there is beauty in that sort of wildness and the wear and tear of a old. I mean, the house is probably 400 years old, so you know it's gone through a lot, and that is lovely. You know, that doesn't need to be all perfect. It's sort of It was lovely. It was a lovely, even like the little band of turquoise beads that you left. Because I thought you would move everything off my dressing table, but to see the photographs with the beads left on, I thought, oh, that's really lovely. And it was a little slash of turquoise that I have in my work, and so it was seeing connections again to that. My home actually reflects a lot of my practice. So that was really interesting, and unexpected. So yeah, it was great. It was lovely.
Well, we absolutely loved it, and exploring the whole heritage aspect of Fleur of England in our 25 years, and the fact that we shot the collection in one of my closest friends' houses just felt so intimate, and personal, which I think just for us and for me, it just makes it extra special to share with our amazing clients as well. They can see the pictures. And I think that your work is so stunning and so beautiful. There are glimpses of it. You can see there's some pictures in our pictures, and the pictures that we took in the studio, there's some of your work in the background. But there's definitely, we will leave the details on this video at the bottom so that people can then go onto your website and see more. So we'll share that information with everybody at the end of the video on your Instagram as well, so they can explore your work for themselves. So Sally, you and I have known each other for 15 years. I think we met at the school gates when our eldest were starting reception, and now they're about to go off to university. So in that time, it's been such a pleasure to watch our children grow, our families grow and develop, and spend time getting to know the adult versions of our children as well. It's very lucky enough to have your daughter Annie come and do work experience with us at Fleur of England. She helped us with some preparation for the photo shoot and came into the studio. So that was just wonderful to have her there. But I'd love to hear from you how female friendships and empowering your female friends, how important that's been to you whilst we do this juggle, because both our husbands are in corporate world, and we are the main caregivers, both of us. So I'd love to see how you've navigated that and how women have supported you with that.
I just think which order to answer, because there's so many aspects to that.
It's a long question.
I think I was thinking about my PhD, and I think almost the PhD gave me permission, and it was a strange time when I started my PhD. It's 2020, so it was beginning of lockdown, and also, I was caring for my mum as well as 3 children and running a business, and we all know the struggle. You're juggling a lot of different things, and I think it's very easy, I think particularly if you're self-employed, to allow that time to get eaten into, because you're at home, so you're the one that's answering the door or can pick somebody up. And I think my PhD gave me a really lovely set of boundaries that I had to go and do that work. It was non-negotiable in a way that which is really ridiculous. When I'm teaching, when I was running workshops or running a holiday let, I could negotiate that around a bit more, and I could let that slide a bit more because it felt sort of selfish. And I think that's something that I think women struggle maybe as a group, maybe, or maybe it's me particularly. But I think if you're at home and even if you're working, you can allow your creativity to be pushed to one side because your partner has the corporate job that they have to go in and do those office hours. And I think that's something that I'm trying to push back against. And actually, my husband is very supportive of that. He would be horrified to think that I'm having to squash my own creativity into a smaller space, but it is just the reality sometimes. And I think part of being able to have this creative life with all of the demands is because we have these wonderful support networks that we build up as women. And I think we've got this, in particular, this amazing group of the warrior women. That my life would be so much poorer without you all in my life. I just think I can feel literally my sort of energy draining, and I think, oh, why am I feeling a bit like, and then I know it's because I haven't actually had a day or a walk or whatever with my friends. And as soon as I have had that, I just come back full of energy. We go away, don't we, for a couple of weekends a year, and more if we can squeeze them in. But even those 2 weekends, that's enough. And we go and we will talk about everything. And I think we're really lucky in that we're not critical of each other. We will be able to share everything, how our kids are doing, whether they're doing well or whether they're doing badly, how our work is going. And also we give advice. And I think you've been great to give me advice about the next step in my career, which I want to sort of expand on the workshops, and I want to expand on Instagram and, different aspects of that don't come as naturally to me as they do to you. And I think hopefully I can do that for other people. And I think that's what, as women, we're able to give, to share our own expertise and to give other people the benefit of our knowledge, and they give their knowledge back, because we're all, our friend Sandra is this amazing sort of financial whiz. She will just organise it, and we've all got different skills, haven't we? But between us, we're this sort of enormous powerhouse. So I think that's wonderful. And none of us have this sort of gatekeeping aspect. And I think that's probably the biggest thing I think women can do, is not gatekeep, not sort of think I've got to keep this, and I there's only room for a certain number of people here, but to bring everyone up alongside you, as you have helped with my daughter Annie. And I see in Annie and my younger daughter Eliza, this, I don't think they even think about whether they're equal to men.
No, because they just are.
They just are.
And that's huge progress.
Yeah, they've grown up with a brother. I've got two girls and a boy, and my boy. I mean, they are just people. They don't think, oh, Henry needs to be treated differently because he's a boy, or I need to be treated differently because I'm a girl. It's just, they are all seeking to make their own way in the world in different ways, but equally wonderful. So that's I mean, and I know they're very lucky, and that isn't the case for all girls. And I think that's something that we need to be aware of, and to keep working at that those opportunities are given to all girls.
Yes,
and
the same.
Yeah,
equal.
Yeah, equal. Without
women and men.
Yeah, and education particularly. That's the start of it, isn't it? That women are treated equally with education, because then they can go on to the opportunities that they want without boundaries.
And the economies of the countries who, that are able for women to be educated and supported. There's huge economic value to female run businesses, female-led businesses. Thank you so much, Sally, for sharing, how women have supported you personally. And I completely second, we have this amazing friendship group called Warrior Women. And it's just being so much support in terms of, family, like a kid's sick and I've got to go on a photo shoot. I could call one of you and you'd be like, yeah, I can help. I can do this. I can do that. It's, when you don't have your family who live locally, that support network has become my family. So without that, I wouldn't have been able to, do everything that I've done at Fleur of England as well. And you're right, the weekends away are the best.
They are the best.
My tummy hurts from laughing so much. So do feel very, very lucky and very privileged to have such a great network of close friends around me. And there are other networking groups that I'm a member of as well, female networking groups, who have also helped me so much in terms of just, having that courage and strength and confidence to push myself further, to be the best version of myself. And I definitely encourage any female who is thinking about their career or becoming a founder. There's loads of network groups, and we'll put some details of the network groups that I'm in at the bottom of this video as well, so that other people can have a research, see if it's the right place for them to help them with their career. But what I'd love to finish on today, Sally, is just to ask you personally what message you'd like to give to women so that they can expand and help other women. So real emphasis between what could women give to other women to enable everyone to gain?
I was thinking about this question, and thinking again to the example of my mother, who as a teacher and as a person wanted to see to bring out the best in people, wanted to find that thing that made someone feel important and special. And I think, and this was with children, but I think it's a message that as women, we can just take into our business life, into our personal life. I think if you can give the encouragement, as I was by being given the ceramics prize age 8, just encourage and just say it. If you think it, say it. If you think someone looks great, say it. If you think someone's business is amazing, say it. Don't just think it. And I think I'm guilty as anyone of not always saying it, but I think that can, those words can have a really profound effect. And I think that's a really important thing. Try and make other people feel good about themselves. And also, I think I've talked, I don't know if it's exactly karma. I haven't really looked at my daughter studied Buddhism, so I should be able to look up what the actual thing of karma is. But in my sense, it's that you give what you give out into the universe, you will get back. But also, that sounds a bit selfish, but also that will ripple out.
Yes.
And I think, talking to someone when you're doing the shopping at the checkout and having a quick chat, will make you feel better, will make them feel a bit better, hopefully, and then they'll be nicer to the next person that comes through the checkout. And it's that, tiny little things that can then have an enormous effect. So I don't think it always has to be massive things. It doesn't have to be necessarily giving someone work experience, although that is wonderful. It's just how we treat other women every day and girls, and giving them value and giving them support and listening to, when Annie, my daughter, is talking about wanting to go into fashion, which I know is a hugely competitive arena, but allowing her to have that dream and seeing where she could take it, not saying, oh, I don't know if that's, as so many people at school as, teaching, oh, I'm not sure if that's a good idea, but just sort of trying to facilitate that as much, not being unrealistic, but sort of facilitating as far as you can someone's dreams and passion. And I think that's something that, when I think back to our mothers, they had these tiny little parameters, didn't they, of what they were allowed to be. And we've got, enormous, it's just expanded so much. And I think we need to be careful to keep those, because that can easily be closed back down as we've seen in, other countries, that we need to make sure that is continued. Yeah.
And to also help the women in the countries that don't have the same amount of freedom that we have.
Yes, not just sit and be complacent in our own rights, but hopefully try, if we can,
to see what
we can do. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sally, for coming today. I have learned, I thought I knew a lot about all your work, but I've learned even more, and it's just been wonderful. And it's really lovely to be actually able to have the time to think about things on a deeper level. And that's what I really like about International Women's Day.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I know it's just a day, or now it's International Women's Month, but it really reinforces us to think, oh, what is that give to gain? What is that message? What can I do? It's part of the conversation, the broader conversation. And I think that lifting other women, it just helps society so much on so many levels. And there's still work to be done, but it's just so lovely to hear the storytelling of your mum and her journey. And I know she'd be incredibly proud if she could be here today to listen.
Thank you.